Okay, hello everybody. This is Senora Shuck and Sheba, who is highly entertained, attempting to make a YouTube video in one shot. So if you are used to high quality YouTube videos, this may not be the one for you, but if you are wanting help for Verbo Vitamina and getting better at Verbo Vitamina, that is the goal today. So we're going to be working on comer, mandar, and vivir hoy. The nice thing about these three, right, is that there's no problems with comer, mandar, or vivir. We start the year this way because we want you to get the regular endings down, so hopefully you can apply them next time. So if you're planning on retaking, this video hopefully will help you practice. I recommend, if you have a marker board, that'd be awesome, but I recommend a piece of paper and a pencil, and you could just practice along with me. Before we start, though, I want to start with the two that tend to trip kids up, and that is number 1 and 2, which is present and preterite. So I just want to point out some patterns because there are patterns and there is a method to the madness. So hopefully we can start to see those. Hopefully we can sort of see here. Let's see. Awesome. So if you look at the AR side, right, we should hopefully know OAS almost on. We should hopefully know the ER side, IR side of OAS A, AMOS, EMOS, N. Where sometimes we get tripped up is the preterite side. But if you kind of look from the second column here to the fourth column here, you should see some similarities from one to the other. So for example, an AR verb in the yo form is A with an accent, and then in the ER/IR it's an E with an accent. And then the to form is aste versus iste, so both looking really similar. The LA form is O and EO, so they both have accents on the O. One is just O by itself, and the other one is yo with accent on the O as well. We've got amos and emos, which makes sense. Amos being AR, emos being ER/IR, and we've got aron and ieron. So again, both looking very similar. So hopefully this can help us start making connections. The third one we did last week was in nosotros form, and what can be confusing about that is for AR verbs down here, like hablar, for example, or mandar, we send is mandamos, and we sent is mandamos. So they do look the exact same. So on a quiz, that seems confusing because how can you have the same answer? But in real life, when you're using mandamos or mandamos, you know the difference based on context. So whether or not you're talking in the present or the past tense. For an ER verb, okay, they are not the same, right? Because we're going to use amos in the present versus emos in the past. But an IR verb is also the same, like amos and amos, because it's emos and emos. So yes, that does seem a little weird to put the same answer twice, but they are the same. Okay, so let's practice just some preterite and present kind of mixed together. Again, I am just going to try and do this like alongside you, like I would if I were tutoring you or if we were doing it in class. Okay, so let's just start with comer, and let's just do it in all the forms. So let's think comer present tense. Okay, so on your piece of paper, if you're trying to work with me to see if you're prepared for a retake. Okay, so comer in the present tense. So I'm going to give you a second to write that as I'm writing it, and then we'll check it together just like I was working with you. Okay, so we're writing comer in the present tense in all the forms. You also have those resource papers that I have given out in class, especially if you came to the morning tutoring. You've got the one that kind of sums up how to do it all in the back. There's a different version, slightly different, that's similar though, that still says all the different forms. You can have that out in front of you while you're doing this. I recommend using those reference papers until you feel comfortable enough to start setting it aside. Until then, there's no problem having it. So comer in the present tense in all 5 forms, right? We should be thinking como, comes, come, comemos, and comen. Okay, so we're being careful to make sure we pick comemos because it is an ER verb. Okay, now if we were doing vivir, there would be virtually no difference. The only difference would be here because it is an IR verb. So we would just have vivo, vives, vive, vivimos, and viven. So there'd be virtually no difference. Okay. So quickly, let's do an AR verb, and then we're going to move on to some more difficult forms. So let's do mandar in all 5 present tense forms. So I send, you send, he, she sends, we send, and they send. Okay, so again, using your reference if you need to. I am going to move somewhat fast because you can always pause me if you need more time to work. So I'm just going to work at a speed that hopefully doesn't make the video too dreadfully long. And if you need to pause it, you can pause it. So pause it here if you're not ready. But here is mandar in the present, right? We have mando, mandas, manda, mandamos, and mandan. Okay, so o, as, a, amos, an. So hopefully we can get number one down. It's going to be, you know, the same all year, present tense. Well, it won't always be number one, right, once we switch in second semester. But present tense, you know, we'll just eventually have irregulars, but your endings will always be the same. So let's try and do some preterite real fast. And I'm actually going to try and mix it in with the imperfect in a second. But let's try all three verbs in the LA form. Okay, so comer, mandar, and vivir, right? What would all three of those look like in preterite in the LA form? Okay, so you're writing comer in the LA form preterite, mandar in the LA form preterite, and vivir in the LA form preterite. Because you're doing preterite, you do know that more accents will pop up. Those accents pop up in just two forms, and that is the yo form and that is the LA form. So because we're doing LA form, you will have all three of these having accents. Okay, so again, pause me if you're not ready. But comer, we should have comió with accent on the O. Mando is mando, accent on the O. And how do we know it needs an accent? Well, because if it didn't have an accent, right, if we took this off, well, now it's yo form of present tense. We don't want that, so accent goes here. And then vivir should look the same as comer because they are both using the same endings. So vivió, accent on the O. Okay, let's do one more preterite, and then let's mix them together with imperfect. So let's try what we did for number 3 last week, which is nosotros. Okay, so we're thinking about mandar in the preterite. Okay, mandar, vivir in nosotros preterite, and comer in nosotros preterite. Okay, pause me if you need to. So again, we will have some repetition. So mandar is mandamos, just like it would be in present. Okay, mandamos. Vivimos is just like it looks in present because it's an IR verb, so it's vivimos. Comimos is the only one that's different because in the present it would be comemos. Okay, so this is the same as present, different because it's an ER verb. So mandamos, vivimos, and comimos. We don't put accents on these, okay? So some students are putting accents because like logically you're thinking, how can it be the exact same? I probably need an accent, right? Remember, in the preterite, you only have an accent in the yo form and the LA form. So no accent necessary. Okay, the nice thing about number 3, and we're just going to practice it super quick, is that number 3 will never be irregular unless it is one of 3. Okay, can you think of what those 3 are to yourself really quickly? So there's 3 irregular imperfect verbs in Spanish: ser, ir, and ver. Ser is era, ir is iba, and ver is just slightly irregular because it keeps the e, so it's veía instead of what it would be, which is via. Let's keep in mind that the nice thing is that the ia, okay, if we're doing an ER-IR verb, all of them have accents. So ia, ias, ia, iamos, ian. And if we're doing aba, none of them have accents except for nosotros form, and that goes on the first A in abamos. Okay, so let's just try a really quick practice with imperfects because, again, they're fairly simple because they're rarely irregular. So let's try in the to form. So if we did mandar in the to form imperfect, which would mean you used to send, comer in the to form imperfect, which would mean you used to eat, and vivir in the to form imperfect, which would mean you used to live. So knowing what they mean is super important because eventually, especially once they go out of order, and I did encourage you not to memorize because if you don't understand what they mean, then they're fairly worthless and it's going to make the second semester way harder. So we should understand what they mean, and it makes sense that it means used to because remember, imperfect is a repeated action in the past. Okay, so it's repeated. It's not like you sent one time, it's you used to send multiple times. So we've got mandabas, right? Comías and vivías. We know mandabas does not have an accent because the only one with an accent is habamos. Comías has an accent and vivías has an accent because all of the ias have an accent. Okay, so that is the used to form, the used to. Okay, now what is currently number 4 and number 5 on your quizzes for first semester are my favorite because why? Because they never have issues or very rarely have issues like in number 5. Number 4 never has issues. Okay, so remember we have 3 parts to number 4. Going to send, going to eat, going to live. Okay, so go ahead and write for me just one example. We are going to eat. Okay, so what is we are going to eat? Okay, we are going to eat. Again, it has 3 parts. You have to have all 3 parts to get it right. Okay, so we should have 3 words on our paper, and that is we are going, vamos a comer. So we are going to eat, vamos a comer. Okay, so the only thing you got to be careful of is just change the first word. So it's either going to be voy, vas, va, vamos, or van. You're always going to have your a, and then you're always going to have your non-conjugated verb or your infinitive. The next one, you have 2 parts because it is I am, you are, he is, eating, sending, living. Okay, so the first part is just your form of a star. So all you have to do is be careful that you pick the right form of a star. So let's do they are living. Okay, they are living. So we're going to put the they are first, which we're going to pick the correct form of a star. And then for living, remember our 2 options are ando if it's an AR verb or iendo if it is an ER-IR verb. So for they are living, we'll end up with están viviendo. Okay, están viviendo. Now, when does a star have an accent? A star has an accent in all of them except for yo and nosotros. Okay, so not yo because it's estoy and not nosotros because it's estamos. But the rest have accents viviendo. Eventually, we will have irregulars in the ando yendo form, but let's worry about that at another time. Okay, so the commands are my other favorite because you can nail the commands, and the nice thing is there are 5 of them, and so that's almost half of your quiz at this point. So if you can get the 5 commands down, you are going to be off to a good start. And the other nice thing about commands is they are always the same. It does not matter if we give you yo or we give you nosotros, doesn't matter. It's going to be the same because commands aren't following the yo to LA, they're following rules of formal commands versus informal commands. Okay, so let's try and do comer in all 5 command forms. What I like to say in class, as you guys have heard a million times, is that there's one command that is a regular ending. There's just one. And the regular ending command is the to positive because that's your friend, right? Like it is easy to boss around your friend. I'm not going to work hard to boss around my friend. I'm just going to put the regular ending. If I'm going to boss Senor East around, right, I'm going to work a little harder and I'm going to flip that ending. I'm going to show respect by giving him a special ending, which is the opposite ending. So all of the other commands are opposite. Only the to positive is regular. So I like to just go ahead and do my to positive on the quiz first. Okay, I'm done with my regular ending one. My other 4 commands I know have to be opposite. Okay, so we're going to do them in the same order that they appear on your quiz, but keep in mind that it's not about memorizing the order they're in, it's about understanding the ending that applies based on the formal informal. Okay, so on your quiz, we're starting with comer. So on your quiz, it starts with the usted command. So go ahead and write down what you think the usted command is. Then it moves on to the to command. Keep in mind the to positive is the one that we talked about with the friend. And then it goes on to usted negative. I'm almost positive. Again, we don't really care about the order though, so we're going to do usted negative. Okay, make sure to put your no in front of it, otherwise you're not really being negative. And then we're going to do to negative. Keep in mind, yes, this is a to command, but we already took care of the positive to one, which is the only one that's regular, so this one cannot be regular. The 5th one we added is actually the nosotros command, which is let's. Okay, so the let's is still a command, and because it's not the to positive, we are still going to make it an opposite ending. Okay, so we are going to put the let's in the nosotros form, but opposite. So those are your 5 commands. Okay, so if you can take care of those 5, great, we're almost halfway there. So here's what comer looks like. You know, we've got coma, that is your usted command because that is the opposite ending of an ER verb, coma. We've got come for our friend. That is the positive to one. That is our friend. It is the normal ending. It's just the LA form of the verb. We've got no coma. You know that this is the negative usted one because it's in the usted form, which is just the he, she ending. So that's why it's just coma. By the way, a good way you can check yourself If you look at your positive usted and your negative usted on a quiz and they are not the same, one of them is wrong. The only difference is the word no. Okay. The negative two, yes, it is a to command, but it's negative two, so we are going to do opposite. And how do we show the difference between this one and this one? We add the letter S because it's negative two, and two verbs end in S. So that's how we can tell the difference between those two. And then comamos being our last one, which is the let's form because it's the nosotros, but it's opposite ending. Okay, so those are our 5 commands. Super quickly, let's just do mandar because it's going to be the an AR version. So do mandar, working your way down. So mandar usted. Mandar to, mandar negative usted, mandar negative to, and finally, mandar let's send. Okay, again, you can pause me if you need to. So we have mande, manda, no mande, no mandes, and mandemos. Okay, so they're all opposite except for this guy. This was our positive 2. All the rest have an opposite ending. This one's nosotros opposite because it's let's. This one has an S on it because it's the to form. And you can see that our positive usted and our negative usted are the exact same minus the no. Okay, so moving on from commands, we've only got a couple more. So the 2 that we have on top of the commands, we've got the auto-ito and we've got subjunctive now. That is the most recent one that we added. So let's start with auto-ito really quickly because a lot of students missed last week's because it was in nosotros form, but we have to be careful that we don't just use nosotros form all the way down if it doesn't make sense. Okay, so for example, we were doing nosotros form, but the quiz said, for the lived one, it said, our lives are lived. Okay, well, our lives is the phrase nuestras vidas. Okay, so we see that here. This is what you were given. You were given nuestras vidas. Okay, but we are not lived. Our lives, they are lived. Like they are lived happily. Okay, so they are lived. So you have 2 choices to make, and you have 2 words to write down because you need the form of a star, just like we did up in number 5. You need the form of a star. In this case, we are going to use están because there's more than one life. So your 2 choices generally are going to be están if it's plural, and then está if it were one life, for example. Then the other choice we have to make, is it auto or is it ito at the end? Well, we're going to use the verb vivir, so we know that it is ito at the end, but we can't just leave it as ito. We have to match the phrase that we are given. Okay, so in the end, what would that look like? It would look like están vividas, okay? Because this was ito, this O became an A, and then I added the letter S because this is plural, okay? So those are the choices you have to make. Is it, what kind of a star is it, right? Is it more than one thing, meaning it's a star, están, or is it one thing, meaning it's a star? And then am I going to change my auto to an ada? Am I going to add an S based on the thing that I am given? Quickly, the final one, so we can wrap up here. The final one is subjunctive. And we are going to give you a variety of phrases to go in front of this one. So last week, I think the common phrase was, I need a friend that. Well, the friend that you need is not specific. It is not your friend that you have. So that would trigger the opposite ending. That would tell you that your second verb in the sentence has to be opposite. So if I need a friend that sends me letters, okay, I need a friend that sends me letters. It is one friend. It is a non-specific friend. So I am going to use the LA form because it's one friend, and I'm going to use the opposite LA form. So in the case of mandar, if it's I need a friend that sends, I am not going to write down manda because I am using the opposite ending. I am going to write down Monday. Okay, so number 12 is your subjunctive form. We may change up what phrase we give you. Like eventually you're going to learn lots of phrases this month, but we may change up the phrase, but we will be giving you a phrase that tells you that your verb has to be opposite ending. So number 12, you're not going to be guessing whether or not it's opposite. Number 12 is an opposite sentence. It's a subjunctive sentence. So it might say something like, I need a friend that. I want a house that. I doubt that is a phrase we're going to be learning eventually. I hope that is a phrase we're going to be learning eventually. So it doesn't matter. We're going to be giving you a phrase that tells you that, oh, my second verb has to be conjugated subjunctive. Okay. Sheepy says it is time to be done because she is stretching out. She says, Mom, we need to go outside. So hopefully that is a helpful start. I highly encourage you to redo Comer, Mandar, and Vivir, not because it's really going to impact your grade that much, because unfortunately they are homework grades. However, eventually they will not be. And these are the best ones to redo because if we can't do these regular ones, we're going to struggle later. So in a couple weeks or maybe in a week, I will have a video for the next 3 verbs, which will be much a little more in depth. I will try and maybe make one video for each verb and or just know that it will take a little more time because they're all 3 irregular for different reasons. So we'll get to that in a bit. I am also going to periodically have videos for different grammar concepts. So like before a quiz, it'll be like a review video. So instead of you having to, you know, study a packet or study a paper, you can study with me. And thank you very much. You can study with me and practice live and see if you're doing it right as if you were sitting beside me doing a map session or a tutoring session. So I apologize this one is long. I do not have time to make these videos fancy, so I'm not trying to like cut and stop them and all that, so I apologize. But I do hope that you find them helpful, and I do hope to see you give me a retake form for Verbo Vitamina if you are planning on doing that. I do not need you to show me any evidence of doing anything this time. Typically, yes, but for the sake of their homework grades, I'm not super concerned. Just bring me the retake form with your parent signature, and let's make sure that we are doing that so we get better. Thank you for watching if you watched all the way till now, and I do hope you find it helpful, and I'll see you in the next video and or in class.